We have a project that works with household air pollution in some of our like rural households here in Puno. Yeah, it's possible. You can apply to two specialties at once if you want. And at the time I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to medical school. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it in a clinical context. So typically your day is going to be 12 to 14 hours of work.
Sean todos bienvenidos a un episodio más del podcast Mente Médica, auspiciado por la consultoría Medicina Académica. En este episodio vamos a conversar con mi amiga Meredith, actual estudiante de Medicina en la Universidad de George Washintong en Washington, D.C., y también becaria del programa de liderazgo en salud global financiado por Fogarty-Fullbright. En este episodio vamos a hablar acerca de cuál es la experiencia de ser un estudiante de medicina en los Estados Unidos. Además comentaremos sobre el proceso de residentado que se sigue en este país después de terminar la escuela de medicina. Y finalmente también conversaremos sobre la importancia de hacer investigación a nivel internacional dentro de la carrera profesional. Sean bienvenidos a este episodio. Empecemos.
Did you tell me that you recently came back from US?
Yes, I went home for Thanksgiving.
For Thanksgiving. That was the reason. Yeah, I was thinking why just 1 week?
Yeah, just 1 week.
Yeah. And how was that?
It was good. I just went to spend Thanksgiving with my family and then I came back. So it was short, but it was good. Yeah.
Great. I really have never been in Thanksgiving in US. What exactly did you do there?
So you cook a lot of food and then everyone in your family gets together and then you just eat and hang out and celebrate and give thanks for all the things in your life that you're grateful for. So yeah, I was with my family and my boyfriend came as well. So we just had a lot of food.
Great. I think that the turkey is the...
Yeah, turkey is very like typical. That's like the traditional thing. But you can make whatever you want.
Great.
Yeah.
That was in Washington, D.C.?
No, so my family's from Tennessee.
From Tennessee. Oh, okay. And you also from Tennessee?
I'm from Tennessee, yeah.
Ah, okay. I don't know what I think that you were from Washington, D.C.
Just because I go to school in D.C., but I'm from Tennessee originally.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. And you were telling me that your undergraduate was in neuroscience.
Yes, I did my undergraduate degree in Chicago, University of Chicago, and I did neuroscience.
University of Chicago. Okay, great. And how did you... Neuroscience is already in the health field. Did you were interested since high school in the health field? Or
No, I got to college and I wasn't sure what I wanted to study, so I tried a bunch of different things. And I liked neuroscience the best. And at the time I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to medical school. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it in a clinical context. Because when I was in college, I was doing research more in molecular biology. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to do more like bench research, like more PhD stuff, or clinical stuff. So I did both in college to see which one I liked more, because I wasn't sure.
That's great. For example, here in Peru, we have master programs in neuroscience, but we don't have in college. And how's in general, there is no, I don't know, like strong programs in neuroscience. How's like which courses do you have? Yeah, how's the experience?
So it will depend on the college in the United States. Not all colleges have a neuroscience program because it is very, specific. So not all of them have the resources to have a neuroscience major. So I was very lucky. The school that I went to had that program and had the resources and really great professors. So when you study it in college, it's similar to a master's. You do have to do a thesis project. So I did research in molecular neurobiology, and then I also did research in neurosurgery as well, for out of curiosity, and then I did my thesis in the molecular neurobiology. And I discovered that I liked both, but I wanted to do research more in a clinical context, which is why I ended up deciding to go to medical school.
Right. Yeah. So you have a lot of lab training, for example, also.
Yes. So you have to do a bunch of different requirements, introductory biology, chemistry, physics, all of that stuff, in addition to more specialized classes in neuroscience. So you have to do neuroanatomy and pharmacology, all that kind of stuff as well. So I really liked it. It was really fun. I had really great professors and really great mentors for research. So it was cool.
It was cool. Mm-hmm. But you decided for the clinical track, the clinical way.
Yeah.
And the process to get into a med school in the United States is very different.
Very different.
From here, yeah. How's the process there?
Mm-hmm. So in the United States, of course, you cannot start medical school until you've finished college.
Yeah.
So you have to do 4 years of, secondary, like post-secondary study in a university.
Yeah.
And you can choose something like I did, maybe a biology, neuroscience, something related to medicine, but you don't necessarily have to. So you can study whatever you want as long as you've studied 4 years at a university. Then after that, you can apply to medical schools in the United States. That process is very long and convoluted, and I did it many years ago, so I don't remember all of the details. But typically, it's pretty competitive. I think it's competitive everywhere in the world to get into medical school. Okay. So when I applied, you were supposed to apply to about 20 to 30 medical schools to have a chance to get in, because it's fairly competitive. And it's kind of standardized, so all people who are interested in applying to medical school apply through a similar portal. And then after that, if schools are interested in your application, they'll send you a second application as like a second screening, and then you fill out that application, and then if they like that, then they'll send you a third invitation for interviews, and then you can go to that school and interview with the program and see if you like it and see if they like you, and then finally they'll make that decision. So it's multiple rounds, it's very long, it takes about a year entirely to apply. So you start applying usually in the spring, summer for the United States, so like May, and you'll probably find out in May of the next year. So it takes about a year to apply, but yeah.
So you applied to 20 to 30.
That was
schools.
when I applied. I don't know, today it might be a little higher because it's more competitive today than it was when I applied. So.
Okay. I guess that for the application you need a personal statement, you need a letter of recommendations.
Yeah, so personal statement for the first application that you send in, obviously there's subsequent parts to it, but the first one that you send to all schools has personal statement, multiple letters of rec, so you can send in, I think, up to 5, but I think I send in maybe 3, something like that. And then also all of your transcripts, so kind of like all of your grades from college. And then you also need to send in your MCAT score. And the MCAT is kind of the entrance exam that you need to take in order to get into medical school.
Yeah.
So you have to send in all of that material, and then any other, extracurricular activities that you did during your time in college or in high school. If you did research, any other supplemental activities that you want to let them know that you did. So, yeah, it's pretty big, pretty long application.
And I have heard that the MCAT can be difficult for some people, right?
It can be. It is very long. It's about 8 hours, so you take a full day. You take a full day. There are no breaks. You just sit for 8 hours and take it. So it's pretty terrible. So it's not fun at all. It can be difficult depending on what you study during college. So the MCAT will have all sorts of fundamental topics like biochemistry, physics, and then it also has some other stuff in there that I don't remember at this point, but it's very, very long. So depending on what you studied in college, it can help you on the MCAT. That's why a lot of people choose to study something like biology or chemistry during college, because it makes that very long test easier, but you can technically study whatever you'd like in college.
That's why it's preferred to have some biology later.
Because it's kind of hard to learn it on your own afterwards, so it's easier if you study it in college. So.
Great. George Washington is now you're in the med school that you are studying, and did you tell me that you just finished your third? How is the career? Because it's 4 years.
Yes, it's 4 years, and the way it works for us is that it's divided into 2 parts. So you have 2 years in the beginning and 2 years in the end. And in the beginning, we call it preclinical studies. So basically you just read a lot, learn the basics of medicine. And then in the last 2 years, you do your clinical portion. So at that point, you'll actually enter the hospital and start working on patients and being evaluated with your work on patients. So that's kind of how it works, divided into two parts. So I just finished the 3rd year, so I have 1 more year when I get back. So I'll just be doing a few other clinical rotations. I have like anesthesia left, and emergency medicine left, so a couple more things, but that's basically how we break it down.
Okay, 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah.
Great. How's the day in a clinical clerkship, for example?
Sure. It definitely depends on what you're rotating through. For all medical schools in the United States, you have 6 fundamental rotations that everyone has to complete in order to be a physician in the United States. So depending on what you're doing, your day can look pretty different. So those rotations include, let's see if I can remember them all: internal medicine, surgery, general surgery, psychiatry, pediatrics, family medicine, or kind of like outpatient medicine, and then I'm missing something.
OG maybe?
OBGYN, yes, thank you. And that's the 6th one. So those are the 6 that all medical schools have to give you. And then after that, you can kind of tailor to what you're interested in pursuing as a career. So depending on your day, it can be a very early day, or it can be a little bit more relaxed. So obviously general surgery is probably one of our more intense rotations. Typically a day in the life of general surgery, I would wake up around 4 o'clock in the morning, and get ready to go to the hospital. Thankfully, I live very close to my hospital, so that was good. I felt very bad for everyone who lives far away, but I live close to my hospital, and I typically arrive around 4:30, 4:45. At that time, you are assigned your own patients that you're working with. So you go and check on all of those patients first and see how they're doing, what happened during the night, and then you can come back and write all of your notes that will go to the rest of the team. So it will go to your resident and your attending. After that, we round with the residents. So the residents will come with us and check on all the patients again. And then finally, we'll round 1 more time when the attendings come in. So 3 times total, we check on those patients very early in the morning just to make sure everything's good. And then we typically start our first case, for surgical case, at around 6:30 to 7-ish. And then you're in the operating room the rest of the day, typically. Yeah. So it depends on what your day, your caseload looks like. Sometimes you don't have as many cases and you finish early. That's not very common. Usually you're there. I was on our transplant team, so I was working with kidney transplants and liver transplants, which are longer operations. Those usually take very long time.
How long approximately?
It depends. For transplants, of course, you can't really plan them in advance. It's usually whenever the organ becomes available is when we go. And you have to go kind of quickly because the organ only stays viable for a few hours. So typically, we will fly to wherever the organ is available, wherever in the country. So we have a plane, and we go to the airport and fly. Collect the organ there, which is a procedure in and of itself, which takes maybe 4 hours, and then we fly back and then do the procedure at our hospital, which is probably like another 4 hours. So typically your day is going to be 12 to 14 hours of work. It's pretty long. Sometimes we get lucky, maybe there are organs closer nearby, maybe in a neighboring hospital, and then we just drive and pick it up, and that's much easier. But if it's in a different state far away, it's a very long day. It can be up to 2 days in a row that we operate. Which is kind of long. But yeah, a typical day is probably 12 to 14 hours of work.
Surgery is very, very intense.
Yes.
And as medical students, you have been participating in this transplant procedures to collect the organ and all of that.
Exactly. It depends on what team you're on. I was on the transplant team, but there's different teams. We also have a trauma team, so some people are doing trauma. We also have a vascular team, so some people are doing vascular surgery.
Yeah.
So it depends on what team you're on, but
Okay.
yeah.
You can decide depending on your preference.
You can rank, which one you prefer to be on. You don't always get it, but you can tell them what you prefer, what type of surgery you prefer.
Even for the rotations, there is like an application process.
Exactly, like it never ends, it never stops. Yeah.
You get used to it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Very interesting what you tell me. What is the most interesting case that you have seen in these med school years?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, there's a million. I had a great time doing my rotations, which makes it very hard to choose a career because I enjoyed a lot of it. I would say, I think my time on general surgery was my favorite rotation. It was the most interesting. Liver transplants are very complicated and very long. Those tend to be our longest ones, especially if we have to go far away to get the organ. Probably our longest operation is our longest day maybe is about 30 hours. So I think those were the most interesting just because there's so much going on and there's so much to learn. So I would say liver transplant is probably the most interesting cases that I was a part of, that I got to be a part of. So, yeah.
It's interesting. And liver disease is rising, right? It's increasing the frequency
of liver transplant?
Of liver disease and cirrhosis. Yes.
But also the issue for us in the United States, I don't know if this is true in Peru, but for us in the United States, a different cause of liver disease is on the rise, so that's been hard to prevent. It used to be alcohol was like the number one cause of liver disease. Now in the United States, it's fatty liver from obesity. It's starting to become like the number one cause. Yeah. So that's been hard to combat, and we haven't found a good solution for that. So it's very, very interesting. If you're interested in public health, it's obviously a big public health conversation in the United States. But I don't know about here in Peru. Yeah. So, yeah.
Here in Peru is very common.
Yeah.
From
alcohol or from
fatty liver disease also.
Okay.
I remember when I was in med school, I have seen a lot of patients with cirrhosis, and they never drink.
Yeah.
And in that time, it was clear, but in practice, really, it was not very common to talk about liver fatty disease. Now we all know that this is one of the main causes. Yeah, and when I was in Baltimore, I see in the ICU a lot of patients.
Yes.
But it was amazing that you can transplant.
Yes.
And do a lot of transplant.
Yes.
Even for patients with alcoholic cirrhosis. Yeah, that's.
It was very cool.
That's very cool. Excellent. Now you are in your final years. And you have came here to do some research through this fellowship in Global Health, right? How has been your experience this month?
It's been really interesting. I already knew I wanted to do global health when I got to medical school. In between college and medical school, I did other international research before. I was in Brazil, and so I already had an interest in it, so I was excited to have another chance to do it while I was in medical school. So it's definitely been super interesting. I feel like I came in probably with more knowledge and more skills than I did the last time that I did it, so it's been exciting to be able to really participate and contribute in a more significant way. So it's been really interesting. It's been really fun.
Great. You were in Brazil.
Yes.
What kind of research did you do there?
So after I graduated college, I was still in between whether I wanted to do a PhD or an MD. That was the struggle. So I was working in a university in Salvador, Bahia, and I was doing neurobiology research there to see if I wanted to do that more as a career. And then I ended up going to medical school. I did like it. I just didn't decide to do medical school. But yeah, it was great. It was really cool.
I think that those kind of experience in different contexts are really important, right? For in general in a health career.
Yeah.
The research, I have been thinking, maybe Meredith wanted to be a neurologist, but I have remembered that you probably seeing ophthalmologist.
So it is a constant struggle. I have a very hard time choosing between neurology and ophthalmology. I love them both. Luckily, there is a fellowship program in the United States and here as well, I believe. I haven't met any here, but I'm sure it exists probably. Called neuro-ophthalmology, because they're fairly overlapped. Obviously, the eyes are very close to the brain, and obviously it's part of your nervous system.
Yeah.
So I think what it will end up being is something like neuro-ophthalmology, so I don't have to choose, because it's been very hard to choose. I like them both.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to talk more about your research that you're doing here, but this kind of program, for example, you have seen that you have to do first ophthalmology or first neurology with where you have to.
You can go either route, both you can do. So you, after medical school, you go into residency. So if you want to do neuro-ophthalmology, you can either do a neurology residency and then an ophthalmology fellowship afterwards, or you can do an ophthalmology residency and then do a neurology fellowship after. So you can do either one. The only difference is you are a surgical subspecialist if you go through the ophthalmology residency versus neurology, you can't operate. So that's kind of where you'd have to choose if you like being in the OR or if you're okay just kind of managing the disease without the surgery. So that's kind of the only difference between the two, but they work hand in hand and partner in a lot of things. So there's a lot of overlap.
So I understand that you maybe follow the ophthalmologist because you like the surgery.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
And your research here, it's what about?
So here I'm working on the HAPPEN team. I don't know if everyone that's listening knows what that is, but basically we have a project that works with household air pollution in some of our like rural households here in Puno. And so obviously that study started, a few years ago, and it was starting mostly with cardiovascular and pulmonology issues, but I added in an ophthalmology component. So I'm hoping to see if household air pollution has any association with ocular diseases. So that's kind of the project here.
Great. Do you have any hypothesis?
So I believe my original hypothesis when I came in was that there were going to be higher rates of dry eye disease for people who had chronic exposure to pollutants, obviously. But I also think there's going to be higher rates of other diseases that I hadn't really considered before. So I also think cataracts might be something that we'll see a lot of. And then we also might see some damage to the cornea as well, just from exposure to pollutants. But yeah, that's the general hypothesis.
You told me it's something very interesting that you are going to assess the eye with special equipment, right? How is that measurement?
So in order to assess damage to the cornea, it's a little difficult to see without staining it and then using a fluorescent tool. So the machine that we used, basically just a large microscope that we can use to see close the eye. And then we put in some of these drops that help us illuminate and fluoresce the surface of the cornea so that we can see if there's any scratches, any damage like that. So that's essentially what we do. And it's easy, just put in drops and then you use a blue light like filter over the light and then it illuminates the drops and then you can kind of see if there's any damage to the cornea. So that's kind of how that works. But the rest of it doesn't necessarily need the fluorescence. It's just the damage to the cornea.
And you're going to take some photos, right?
Yeah.
That's excellent. I don't know if I can ask about this, but did you get the machine?
It's coming, apparently.
It's coming?
Yeah. I'm waiting patiently. Not so patiently, but I'm waiting.
I think that it was finally donated, right?
Yes, it was donated about 2 months ago, but we're just bureaucracy of getting everything shipped, all the paperwork, everything.
I think that is really interesting because in research, talking with some companies, No, making some collaborations, you can get some equipment for your research.
Yes, so we were really lucky. We were working with another academic institution anyway, so I think they already valued doing academic research, which was nice. Not all companies have that, so so that's kind of what gave us, that's kind of why we were lucky there. And so they were willing to donate the equipment for the rest of the research project. Wow. And then we can share with them whatever findings that we have. So,
Great, excellent. Any advice that you will have for a student that's not just in med school, but maybe for nursing, for biology, that want to start to do research?
I would say for research, the most important thing is to just start getting involved. It's kind of hard to know what kind of research you're going to like until you start doing it. So that was, for me, the case. I obviously was just like doing different things until I figured out, I think I like this better. So I would say don't overthink, what kind of research and where it needs to be. Just, if the opportunity comes along, take that opportunity and see what kinds of things that you enjoy in research. And then from there, you can kind of create a career where you can follow what you like most. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a great advice, because when someone starts, really don't know what
you don't know yet. It's hard to know before.
You, for example, didn't like molecular biology.
I did like it. I just like something else a little more.
Clinical work.
So,
Okay. Also, how has been here in Peru? Is your first time? No,
it is not my first time. I came a long time ago though, so it kind of feels like the first time. I had been to Lima before in college for spring break once, so that was really fun. But it is my first time in Puno, so this is a very, obviously, of course, it's a very different environment than Lima. So I've been learning all about, Puno and the culture here, the food here, because it's pretty different than Lima. So it's been really interesting because it feels like, honestly, a new place. Like I'm learning everything from scratch. And of course, still learning Spanish, so practicing my Spanish.
Excellent. I forget to ask you about if someone wants to get into med school in the United States, there is any important part in the application to take in account?
I would say they're all important. So my advice would be to take your time. Make sure you give each part of the application the time that it needs to be as strong as it can be. The MCAT is important, of course, so make sure you study hard for that, but all the other components of it are also important. So making sure you have good connections, good people to write letters of recommendation, because they're really important. To have, someone give, good recommendation for you. And then also making sure your extracurriculars are strong, like all of those things are important. And then taking your time on your personal statement, really understanding why it is you want to go to medicine and being able to articulate it the best way you can. So all of it is really important. So I would say kind of take your time and work on each part of it to the best of your ability, because all of it kind of matters. I don't know if I could choose one that's the most important. Maybe the MCAT, but honestly, all of it is very important. Even if you do well on the MCAT, you will not succeed without the other parts of the application. So that would be my advice.
Oh, great. That is an comprehensive assessment of the application.
Yes.
And you are now in getting into your 4th year of med school. And I think that also are you studying the process to applying?
Yes, so residency? I will do all of this again so I can apply to residency. Yes, it's a very similar process to apply to residency as well. So we have a slightly different standardized test, but we have a standardized test that's not the MCAT, but it's something else. So we have 2 of them actually. So you have to take both of those. And then same thing, letters of recommendation, personal statements, extracurriculars, research, all that has to go into that application. So I'm ready to do it again.
I think that the tests that you do are not the steps one, right?
Yes.
Oh, aren't they right?
Yes. So after so again, it's kind of divided into two parts. You have your preclinical and your clinical. After your preclinical years, you take step 1.
Okay.
And then after your clinical years, you take step 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So both of those are important to go onto your application. Yeah.
You have taken, right?
I've done both of them. I did step 1 and step 2.
And all
was good. Yeah. Luckily, all was good. Yeah.
That's great. Those exams are really, really difficult.
Yeah, they're tough. Yeah. So
Excellent. So you're ready. Do you need to?
when I come back, I just apply. Yeah.
Just apply. No more exams.
No more exams. I'm done. It's nice.
To ophthalmology and neurology, I think that want to apply for both, maybe, or
Yeah, it's possible. You can apply to two specialties at once if you want. Can you do that in Peru? I don't know if you can do that here.
it's a little different because here you apply to a university
Okay.
to a specialty.
Okay.
And maybe depending if you cannot get a the spot, you can get offers for another ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's something similar. Like if I apply to ophthalmology and there's no spot, they may offer me something else somewhere else. But yeah, so we'll see. I might apply to 2 specialties at once and then see which one I can get. So we'll see. I'm still thinking about it. I still have some time to think.
Great.
Choose. Yeah.
Yeah, you have time until September, right? Next
Yeah.
September. September.
Yeah.
Excellent, Meredith. So it has been really nice to talk with you.
Thank you. This is so cool.
Your experience in transplant surgery.
It was fun.
We don't have that here. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Muy bien, amigos. Muchas gracias por haber llegado hasta el final de este podcast. Como saben, aquí en Mente Académica seguiremos hablando mucho más sobre todos estos temas de investigación, desarrollo profesional en el área de salud y también investigación a nivel internacional. Gracias y nos vemos en un próximo episodio. Hasta luego.